I'm Colleen Derrick with Swaggers Insurance, presenting to you week number 2 of Tap In, Pour Out. Our 4 weeks of this mini course covered locate a good source. That was last week. Tap in this week. Next week, start pumping, and we're going to close it off with spray wide. Locating a good source requires quality and quantity. If you are watching this session or attending this session, odds are there's an area of your life that feels dry, where you don't feel that you have what you need for success, that you're struggling or you're stuck. Either that's with your finances, with your family, maybe with your mind or your emotions. Quality and quantity of a good source makes everything different. It builds that foundation that feeds and fuels you, inspires you, encourages you. We discussed how you need to have purity of product, potency, not weak, but really concentrated, intense, good stuff, and plentiful. If you run out right at the beginning, then you're right back where you started again. So we want it to be plentiful. We don't want a one-hit wonder. We discussed that we have to have the whole package of heart, soul, mind, strength. God is not a one-platform God. We are not one-dimensional people. Our finances are not one entity. There's 6 pillars of finance. God is the Trinity. We are built in spirit and truth, flesh and soul. When we tap into the Word of God, we know that our heart may fail, our flesh may fail, but God is the strength of our heart and our portion forever. We discussed that our soul can sprout living water when we're tapped into God. Don't be conformed of this world, but let's be transformed in our minds, and let's draw our strength from the source that will never run dry. Tap in. This week's session. How do you access and utilize quality resources? Establish good, secure access. Put down lots of roots. One source of income in a family makes them very vulnerable. We saw heartbreaking situations this past year with the impact of the COVID pandemic, where families or businesses that had one single income stream that was disrupted ended up in crisis. We would like to avoid that by having 2, 3, 4 income streams if possible. Because if one is disrupted, you have 3 more to lean back on. I had this wonderful team meeting this morning, and there were 3 of us present. We collaborated, we encouraged, we had different perspectives, we challenged ideas. Last month, one of our people wasn't able to make it. Still had an amazing meeting. Why? Because there were 2 of us. One was down, but we had 2. And we were able to encourage one another. We were able to discuss and challenge each other, and we were able to spark ideas and really move forward and help each other from falling back, getting discouraged, or plateauing out. Multiple routes equal good access. You have this great source. We want you to be able to really suck it up and utilize it. Drill down deep. Don't just dip your toes in, commit and establish. So we had some very hot weather this last week, didn't we? Anybody else enjoy that 30+ degree weather? I loved it. But I got hot and I wanted to refresh. Found this great stream at the one place we were at. Did I put my little toes in? No! Socks off, pants rolled up, completely submerged, both feet up to my knees. Oh! It was so refreshing and good. When you have that great source, you want to dive in, experience it, and then remain. Don't just do what I did. I refreshed and then, I went off about my thing. I got what I needed. I was refreshed. Way I go. No, that worked for that moment. But that's not how we tap in and pour out. You need to remain. Find your good source and then stay put. Keep tapped in. Not one and done. Make use of that. Set up camp. 3 keys to successful tap roots. Gardeners out there, we know the tap root. It is deep, it is big, and it really helps the plant that's on top of it to thrive. Wow, does it ever. How do we use that wisdom from God's creation and apply it here? Well, we look at Joshua 1:8, which talks about focus. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Good source, book of the law. Commitment, do not depart from it. Be careful to apply it, tap into it, and then you will be able to pour out prosperous success. Commit. We look at John 15:5. I am the vine, you're the branches. Whosoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit, for apart from me, you can do nothing. We have phenomenal cosmic power when we stay tapped in. We can choose to leave. It's okay, but we lose access to that. We are the branches. We are not the vine. We are not the roots. We're grafted in by grace and mercy. We are grafted in. We need to commit. We've also discussed establishing when we look at Colossians 1:23, but you must continue to believe this truth and stand firmly in it. Don't drift away from the assurance you received when you heard the good news. The good news has been preached all over the world, and I, Paul, have been appointed as God's servant to proclaim it. That's my whole 4-week message right there in Colossians 1. Establish. Paul, I think that we can see him as a great source of inspiration for how to tap in and pour out. Stand firmly in this truth. We have this truth, good source. We can stand firmly in it. Don't drift away from the assurance that you received from the good news. 3 keys to our successful tap roots. Focus. So we remember our verse there was Joshua 1:8, and the book of the law, we shall not depart. Your feet will take you where your heart is. Have you ever been driving? I do this all the time. If you are my navigator in the passenger seat, as my one friend will absolutely attest to, you have got to be on the ball, because there are certain places that I'm just really comfortable going. And if we're visiting or I'm listening to a good song or there's something beautiful for scenery, guess where I will end up driving to? Not where I'm supposed to be going. No, one of the places that's in my heart. This is a truth we often forget. And when you find a good source of sustenance, ensure it aligns with your heart, and you will get distracted. You will. So guard against that. Stop tapping in and lose the ability to pour out, or keep focus. Stay focused on being rooted. Commit. Verse here was John 15:5, right? I am the vine, you are the branches. You need to abide in me to bear much fruit. When we commit to spending time soaking in goodness rather than chasing selfish ambition, purpose will flow. Tapping into the Creator is far more potent than tapping into the creation. You know, if you have been to the mountains, that big, massive, rushing waterfall and river. And then there are the little streams that trickle off to the sides. Last week we talked about making sure we have the good source, the main river, because the little trickles off to the side don't produce the same quality, the same potency, and the same plentifulness. Tapping into the Creator and not the creation is that same thing. When we listen to people talk about God, that is good, but it is not the same as listening to God. When we spend time in the presence of people who love God, we can feel some refreshing, some nourishment from that. Again, I have a group of women I was on a meeting with on Monday evening, and I felt refreshing from these women of God. But that is not the same as when I spend time with God, being still, knowing He is God, to commit to spending time soaking in the goodness, to tap into the source, the original. Establish. This was our Colossians verse in 1:23, but you must continue to believe this truth and stand firmly in it. Do not drift away. I hear, I forget. I do. Probably your name, very likely. And I'm sorry to each and every one of you. I see and I remember. I can recall your face. I might not remember your name, but I can recall your face because I saw it imprinted. I do and I understand. That's Confucius, and it's so true. Ron Blue and Kingdom Advisors have this great chart, and it's knowing, and then believing, and then doing. You cannot do before you believe, and you cannot believe before you know, but knowing is not going to get you to doing. You have to go from know to believe to do. Knowing, believing, doing. Do tap in. Set up camp. Don't lose your fueling station. Next week, we're going to talk about pump it up. You can't pump it up if you haven't tapped in. And you can't tap in well if you haven't found a good source. Please feel free to comment. Please feel free to call me. Happy to have a discussion with you. Please do dig into those verses. They are valuable. They will not steer you wrong. And for anyone that's saying, okay, she's now talked about tapping in and pouring out. Isn't she a financial advisor? What does this have to do with money? Everything. Number one, we know that where our treasure is, there our heart is. Do you remember that our feet will take us where our heart wants to be? There is a correlation to this. Where your treasure is also shows us where your heart is. We need to have our heart planted, established, sourced in, so that we can have our money be in alignment and we know where our treasure is and be putting our money into good treasure. We can also be taking this and looking at something like retirement planning. I like the retirement income buffet. I don't want one source of income for you in retirement. I want to have a myriad of them because it really helps us against supply disruption. Again, COVID has really amplified our awareness of that truth, that lesson. A supply chain. If you have one supply chain easily disrupted, everything crashes down. When we have multiple supply chains, multiple routes, multiple income sources, multiple investments, we build in some security. We build in a buffer zone. When we talk about risk management, like same thing. We want to have really good quality risk management products. When we're looking at taxes, how does this apply to taxes? Well, if I have a good source and good income and I manage my tax situation well, it flows through and allows me to have also this to pour out. Absolutely, this applies and is relevant across the board. Estate planning. Do you have a good source set up so that you can flow through and pour out to the next generation? Cash flow. Money comes in, money comes out. What's your flow looking like? Are you managing it? Do you have a good stream? Are you controlling where it's going? I think that you can see how this is a transcendent principle base that you can apply to relationships, that you can apply to your finances, that you can apply to your energy, that you can apply to your business. So I would challenge you to really be creative this week on thinking about how you can extrapolate this information and apply it to all those different areas. I will see you next week for Pump It Out.